Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world watching this. Thanks very much for being here on our Monday live stream. I hope this all finds you well and in festive spirit. So that's the first thing to be said. We are streaming across the known universe. We're on the Twitters, we're on the Getters, we're on the I think we're on the Facebooks even actually just for lols. We're on Rumble. We're on Get. Yeah, we're across the piece. So warm welcome to you watching this wherever you are. And we have got a really excellent lineup of guests tonight. Not just one, multiple guests, in fact, and on a topic which. Well, you can see just on the ticker tape below, is a really relevant topic. It's to do with essentially how do we cope with the fact that we don't actually have borders, which is what I think the position we're in. So hello to Peter, hello to Leslie, Claude, Northern Monkey, all of you guys, Albert. Great to see you all here. Yeah, I know, old Baz. We're on Facebook. So I only broadcast onto Facebook and YouTube for laughs, right? Because I despise both those platforms. Okay, don't really care for them because they're anti-free speech. And the one thing we're about here is free speech. And so, look, as I said, I've got a lot of stuff to get through. And yeah, we've got Jolene Bunting up. We've got loads of great guests coming up. So just stick with me. We've got, John Lawrence is from the National Housing Party in the UK. Welcome, John Lawrence. Jason O'Brien, all of you guys. You're all in the house. Okay, so listen. So I think that's pretty much most of you beginning to tune in. And I should say, by the way, to all of those of you who will watch this in replay, a big thank you for watching it, regardless of when you watch it. So, right, what we're going to do then is I wanted to start this off by context. So important to have context. And the context for this is a video which appeared a couple of days ago. And some of you may have seen it, some of you mightn't have seen it. So I'm going to play the video. And then once we've played the video, we're going to bring on our first guest who's been on with me before. So he's a seasoned hand at this malarkey anyway. So can we just get the video going now that hopefully sets everything in context for you guys? Play video.
You were the first MP I've ever heard talking about the situation in the English Channel being an invasion, and that is what it is. You have to stop the invasion.
The situation in the English Channel is an utter humiliation. You and your entire party have done nothing.
Costing the country billions in pounds, which could be going to more needy people like homeless veterans.
Economic migrants are abusing the system. We want to see you take action.
Why don't you actually do something?
I don't want my country changing so it becomes unrecognisable.
They're fighting aged men. No women and children, no refugees or any of that bullshit. We can see what's happening. The Great Replacement is in full swing.
We need to protect our borders. The British public are sick to the stomach of seeing invaders flooding into the country, be put into hotels at their expense, and then be put into their homes before the rest of the country.
We need to exit the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. That is the only solution.
Deport, deport, deport.
Remember the old saying, acta non verba. Action, not words.
Yours sincerely, the British taxpayer and the British voter.
Okay, I think that's a pretty powerful piece of work. I hope you enjoyed it. And we're going to be talking now to some of those who were in that particular video. And, just the first thing I want to say off the top is I completely agree with everything that they're saying. First of all, just to be clear, I completely agree with them. And so let's start the show off by bringing on one of the people that you heard speaking and that is, of course, Steve Laws. So if we can bring Stephen, here he is. He's having a crafty cup of
You caught me
coffee.
off guard there, didn't you?
Yeah, listen, I got one as well. Steve, you're very welcome back on the stream. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here this evening, and thanks for that amazing piece of work. Actually, you know, and also, Steve, to say again, just before we get into the detail, I do follow all the work that you put out in your Telegram channel and elsewhere, and you do an extremely important job. But you shouldn't have to do any of it, Steve, if this rotten anti-British government were actually doing their work. But so anyway, so let's put it in context then, in terms of the video. Just explain to our viewers and our listeners as well, by the way, because this goes out as a podcast. You know, what exactly was your driving force behind it, Steve?
Well, the driving force was, I got the idea really because a few years ago when we had the Dover protest, I'd done the Dear Priti Patel video. I don't know if you've seen that one. And it was just ordinary people saying what they felt about the invasion. And then I thought maybe it'd be quite effective to get some more influential faces on there to spread the message. But it was a double layer. It's sort of an act to unify a lot of the people from our side to show, look, we are trying to work together. These people share the same values and we want to move forward together. But also I want to encourage the public to put their face out there and speak their mind honestly about the invasion, because until people come out and they say it as it is and not be scared to do it, it's going to be difficult to push forward. So people need to be encouraged to speak out against this. So there's a few sort of like, I can't take all the credit for the editing and stuff. Our mutual friend done that. I'm not sure if he wants his name out there. So, but no. I thought I'd put the thanks out there just for that. And thanks for having me on as doing this show. I do appreciate it, David. Oh,
no, I think, whoa.
Camera problem. Sorry.
This is the effect, the Vance effect, just like that. I'm taking Steve on. No, Steve, no, I mean, look, I don't want this to be a mutual love-in, but it is important, the issues that you have been faithfully cataloging now for what seems quite a long time. And one thing I want to focus on, you know, at the very beginning of that video, David Curtin talks about, he uses the word invasion, which I think is the correct word. And yet, when any politician mentions it, Steve, well, the instant word is racism. So how do you defend the use of the word invasion?
Well, it's as simple as that. It is an invasion. You're not called racist for defending your borders. And even if people do call you racist, we're well past that now. Let's be honest. Nobody cares if you're called racist, if you're called a Nazi or this or that. No one actually cares no more. The meaning, it's lost all meaning and it means absolutely nothing now. It's the same as somebody calling me a swear word. Couldn't care, move on with my life. And that's that. And I think that's the attitude the rest of the public have to take. They've taken this racism slogans that they use too far to the point where it's become completely irrelevant and doesn't even mean what it's meant to mean.
But and Steve, when we look at the numbers involved, and specifically the cross-channel, the whole cross-channel migrant things, I mean, I remember chatting to you about this, you know, back a while, and the numbers have just, Steve, been going up and up and up. And the politicians must know this. But Steve, what are they doing to stop it?
They're doing absolutely nothing. It's the same old play out that happened when Sajid Javid was the Home Secretary, and then when it was Priti Patel, and now Suella Braverman, and they're all playing out exactly the same. They're saying the exact same sound bites. They're trying to get media headlines. They say they're going to deport Albanians, even though we've already got a bilateral agreement to send them back already. They seem to claim that as some sort of victory. But ultimately, they're not doing anything. And as you pointed out, the numbers are climbing increasingly high. For instance, in the year 2019, it was 1,800. In the year 2020, it was 8,500. And then in 2021, it was 28,500. And now this year already, we're almost at 45,000. And these are just the ones we know about. And that's not including the lorries. That's not including the ones that come via planes or overstay their visas or come in the back of a car, etc. That's strictly just by boat.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Steve, it's shocking. I actually saw a thing today where I think I saw it was the overseas development minister, who's another complete waste of space. But he was on saying, oh, roughly 50% or more of the overseas aid budget doesn't go on overseas aid because it goes on providing the finest hotel accommodation as can be found for all these illegal migrants who come here. And I think that's, I mean, it's a scandal, the biggest scandal happening, I think, well, certainly in sync with COVID anyway, but it's a big scandal, it's a massive scandal. And that's why we need people like you and everyone else, raising these issues. Because, I mean, I talked to you before about how do people feel about it in these regions where you must be seeing the impact of all these invaders.
Oh, absolutely. Like in my hometown, for example, in Folkestone, we have now 2 hotels and the barracks, as well as a processing facility and beach landings happening on the beach. And all of this happens regularly. And this is just in one small town. So you can imagine the scale in like the larger cities and places like that. I put in a freedom of information request recently asking how many hotels are housing illegal immigrants. 419 are currently, as of November the 10th, 419 hotels were being used to house illegal immigrants. And people always get fixated on the £6.8 million cost that is costing a day for the taxpayer. But in reality, it's closer to 20 million when you add in the staff that's required, all of the food, all of the other benefits that they get. It's closer to 20 million a day than 6.8 million a day. And this is what sort of frustrates me a bit, because people get fixated on just the hotel figure and completely disregard every other cost involved.
Yeah,
it's all coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. It doesn't matter if it's something small or something major. We shouldn't have to pay for any of it.
I completely agree. Steve, we're going to be joined now. I'm going to bring you stay. I think we can also bring in a couple of guests at the same time. We're going to try this anyway. So I can see they're sitting around the Christmas tree here in the background. I see them. Yeah. And here we have Santa's little helpers all the way from Wales. Hopefully, if we can bring them on the stream. And that's obviously our good friends. From
Good evening.
Good evening. Evening, gentlemen.
How are you?
We are all fine, and it's good to see you looking so festive there in the background. And but on a serious note, I mean, your contribution to that video, I mean, I listened to it all very carefully, and there is that impassioned sense, guys, of we don't want to have our heritage stripped away from us, and yet from what Steve's saying and whatnot, that's exactly what the consequence of all this is going to be, isn't it? Over to you guys.
Without doubt, yeah. We've put a number of petitions in. Wales is a nation of sanctuary. Obviously, it's not a devolved matter, immigration, but Mark Drakeford, or what you call him, Commissar Drakeford, has taken upon himself to call Wales a nation of sanctuary. We've noticed it already, being in one of the big cities, Swansea. You walk around the high street and it already is unrecognisable, isn't it?
Yeah. I went to Brecon, which is it's South Wales, but it's north of South Wales, if that makes sense.
I know it. Yeah.
I was shocked, and I mean shocked. I went there to do a little bit of Christmas shopping, and all I could hear were Albanian, Romanian, other languages other than Welsh, not even English, and that was there were groups of young men, and they were loitering on. It looked as though they just got off a coach, but there was no evidence of a coach. But they were huddled in 6s and 7s all the way down the high street, and this is fundamental because people are already afraid of their safety. It's the fear. It might not necessarily be actual, but it's the fear of it. And you've got the Wellington pub there in the centre of Brecon, and they don't use it because A, they've got no money, but B, the majority of them are mainly Muslim, and so these areas that they're flooding, and they are flooding them in Snowdonia, in the Brecon Beacons, in West Wales, in Cardiff. It means that not only there's a double whammy for the local industries, but also for people, because people are afraid to come out.
So okay, so let me just stop you there. So just on that, I want to zero in on that, because with all due respect to those regions you've just mentioned, they're probably not, the sort of the first parts of the world that you would think that these illegal migrants would get to. So tell me this: how do they get there? I mean, we know from Steve they're coming across the channel, they're landing there. Are they then being transported into places like Wales? Then, guys, how does it?
We've spoke to a few of them. Like Steve will tell you, we've been with Steve up to Napier Barracks. We always try to speak to the people who are in these camps and hotels. And we always ask them the same questions, you know, where have you been? Where do you come from? Although that's probably not allowed to be asked anymore, isn't it? Where do you come from?
Racism.
We always ask them. And they, you know, some of them even show us their Facebook. And their Facebook shows them checking into airports, flying from France to Italy to Spain. And then all of a sudden they've crossed on a dinghy and they're in Penally Barracks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But then also...
fleeing war.
Yeah. And we asked them, you know, why the UK? Why do you want to come to the UK? And we've got a section which shows all the migrant hotels we've visited on the website. And they always say, you know, if you go to Italy, you're on the streets. France, you're on the streets. Come to the UK. You know, it's self-explanatory, really, isn't it? They're doing better than most UK citizens at the moment. So, you know, they are absolutely shipped in. And it always seems to be the quiet little seaside areas, which usually would be the places where you would get the white flight, so to say. Like a lot of English people emigrated over from England to West Wales, and they settle in there to all of a sudden have 250 men dumped on their doorstep. So it does, you know, either the Home Office are, which we do think is the case as well, completely, you know, oblivious to, they just point at something on the map and say that one, or they are proactively trying to smash any sort of culture or any sort of thing that we have to be proud of in Wales. You go to Cardiff. Cardiff's supposed to be the capital, you know, and it's supposed to be the best shopping centre, the best high street. We call it, we call it.
on when did we go? Last Tuesday? It looked like Lagos.
Yeah.
I know that you laugh there, Steve, but it did. It looked like
I'm laughing because I believe you. It's not a laugh as if it's funny. It's just a shock.
I know. But the issue is, you see, go back to Brecon when you've got. I mean, unfortunately, I was with family, so I couldn't actually, because they know that I ask questions. I'd do an impromptu interview, but it was fear of getting what's it's cut off. So I couldn't. So all I could do is observe. So in this instance, I don't know how they got there. We do know that there's a different style in Wales because they actually tried to house them. Now, what that has done is it's taken away the private sector housing because, and what it's done with the rest, the ones that are vacant, the rents have gone up. So people then can't afford them either. And this is making people and indigenous Britons homeless. It's making them impoverished because we've got Commissar Drakeford that just says, "Oh, come in. We're a nation of sanctuary. Come in." And it's to national, the pride of the country. It's to get rid of it. It's to get rid of it. He doesn't want it.
Stan, can I also ask a question? If you look at a place like Brecon, I'm not sure how big a place that is, but if you've got these small little, local communities, indigenous communities, right? And then you suddenly have these numbers of people coming in from wherever, does that surely then is going to really change the nature of those places? It's not as if it's London, like there's a population of 10 million. These are smaller communities, so the pace of change, demographic change, can therefore be accelerated in these areas. Do you think that's why they do it? Do they hate the fact that there are proper Welsh areas, proper English areas, proper Scots, and even some Northern Irish areas for that matter? Do you think? I mean, I think they hate the fact that we have the proud heritage that you guys have got, in Wales, and it's one way to destroy it, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll give you two examples, and then I'll let Dan speak. When we turned up at Penally, there was a 90-odd-year-old man up a set of ladders. He was trying to build his fence higher. He backed on to Penally training camp, and he was trying to make his fence higher. He'd lived there for 50 years. He'd retired, and that was he wanted to be carried out in a box. That was his last place, and he dreaded it. He was in tears because of what had landed. And at Penally, you had a population of about 850, and they were going to put 400 single male Muslim men next to them, and the fears were right within days. There was an arson there. The guy was never charged. He was just moved.
When we went down to report on it, because we found out literally on the day, it was just so happened Stan was actually on holiday in Tenby. He took a long, nice break for us to just follow him down because we found out that camp had been taken over.
Yeah.
And we were caught for saying, look, you need to be careful. You need to keep an eye on your kids' devices. You need to keep an eye on drugs around the area. You need to keep an eye on crime around the area. Just be safe. Just think about, just have that little bit of extra, about you. And we were called everything under the sun by everybody, Forward 6 months, there'd been arson, there'd been, the maids locking themselves in cupboards because they were scared of the men attacking them. There was, the children. We were notified by parents that their child was being messaged by the migrants from Penally camp, arranging to meet them with loads of booze in the local skate park. We put that out there, and lo and behold, they turned up with all their booze, but to find a load of angry dads. So it didn't go the way they planned. But the simple fact is, these things are common everywhere. Wherever these people are, these things tend to happen, and it does lead to people being scared in their own communities, and that's just not on.
And finally, guys, just one other question I wanted to ask, because is there an issue in terms of Wales with people coming across from the Irish Republic and that route, the Irish route? Because as far as I can see, I mean, Ireland is completely surrendered, and some people have said that already, and I agree. Ireland's completely surrendered, but it's quite easy for them to get across the end of Wales, isn't it? So is that something you guys pick up on?
Yeah, it is happening as well. We've had reports of them traveling into Northern Ireland because they're just allowed to, and then they can just cross over. And I don't know where they're ending up from there, but there surely isn't a migration centre at the top of Wales like you've got in Dover, so they could. It's quite easily, and I don't want to give any green lights to anyone, but it's quite easily a way to disappear, and that's what they tend to want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, funnily enough. We haven't heard of these because, of course, ours is Rosslare from the south, and it's Holyhead, Dublin.
Yes.
In the north, I think it's then Liverpool, Belfast.
Yep.
And then
I can jump in on that. I've seen a lot of traffickers that are advertising the route from Dublin and Belfast all the way through to Liverpool and Manchester, and they're charging them, and they're coming over in like taxis and things like that.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Like I'm not even exaggerating. It's so easy for these people. Like we're doing the jobs for the traffickers because it's just ridiculous. Like having a border with the EU right like in Northern Ireland is doing us no favors whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. And just on that point, one of the reasons why I believe that what we should have done was there should have been a hard border between Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland to stop things like this, which of course the UK government didn't do. I have to say, throughout all of this, if you were looking at this objectively, guys, you would have to say that this British government and previous governments, they've done nothing to stop the issue and everything to facilitate it. I mean, that's how it seems to me.
Yeah. But isn't it an irony, David, that the Sinn Féin IRA wanted to break away from Britain, only due to be colonised by mainly Arabs and Africans.
Yep,
which is what is happening. It's unreal.
As well, like you were just saying, they could have stopped it. That's the worst thing, is that it's not that even that they just haven't tried. If they wanted to, they could have. France has, Italy has, and apparently these all use the same rules and regulations that we are bound by and prevent us from doing anything about it. So why are the UK so soft? Why are they just so welcoming and have everybody in? There was a report that an article I typed up yesterday, and it was from a case back in January where a 33-year-old man had killed an 88-year-old woman. You can guess that the man is not of British heritage. And the article was basically just saying he's pled guilty to manslaughter. I looked into it a little bit more through a few people contacting me. This man had overstayed his visa by 7 years. He'd applied to stay and failed his appeal twice and was ordered to leave and to be deported. And then in that 7 years, he was just allowed to stay. And he then went on to murder someone. Now, we've got all these hotels full. If that guy is here for 7 years over his student visa, which was dodgy anyway, how many more people are taking up houses? So you can understand why they've got such a backlog. And I think they should start on getting rid of the people they know are already overstaying their welcome, because they'll have a record of it. They'll have a list of it. So why aren't they even doing anything about that?
Well, I saw a statistic today that said that, Steve, 0.3% of the illegals who have come here have been deported. 0.3%? That means 99.7% they're here. So essentially, the government is making damn sure that once you come to these shores, you're staying. Once you arrive, set foot on our soil, you stay. Pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, and it's the same with the Afghans as well. They're getting given the golden ticket left, right, and centre now. Rather than going through and processing them all properly, they're just granting them all so they can all stay, so they can get rid of the backlog. And even the failed asylum seekers, they don't get deported. They still get given houses. They still get given money. It doesn't mean anything. You don't even need to claim asylum to stay in the UK. You can just turn up. That's where we're at, basically.
Yeah.
Well, listen. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Dan. Yeah. And then we'll.
I just going to say, Mark Drakeford in Wales now, when you've got actual refugees, like you can say, whatever about the what's going on in Ukraine. However, there are people coming over that are fleeing some conflict, whatever. But they are now being told or asked if they can start paying for their own food and their own laundry. So you've got genuine people who may be fleeing, a maybe war, who are basically fend for yourself. And then you've got chancers who are here to exploit the system, who are given absolutely everything.
Yeah, it's shame. Can I just say I'm gonna bring our next guest into the studio now, guys. So I'm gonna say bye to Dan and Stan. But can I just say, guys, before you go, a big word of appreciation for the amazing work that you guys are doing as well. Because again, I do follow your work. Incredibly courageous, so important, and I just want to put on record, my appreciation, and I'm sure a lot of the people who watch this will also be big supporters of your work. So can I thank you guys for being on the stream, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas as well. But these are important issues, and as I say, you're making a great contribution. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and we're going to bring on our next guest, who also has got a seasonal background, I see. I haven't spoken to him before, but without any further ado, let me bring on Pat McGuinness, hopefully coming into the stream now. Yeah, here he is. Hello there, Pat. How are you?
Hello, David. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Yeah, all good. We're all good. And I really like your Christmas tree as well. This is forever going to timestamp the time of this particular recording with all the trees. But listen, Pat, thanks so much for being with us. And obviously, you come at this, I know, from a particular angle, which again I support actually. But just again, for the benefit of viewers and whatnot, explain where you're coming from on this issue.
Yes, thanks for having me on, David. So my name's Pat McGuinness. I'm the press officer for National Housing Party, United Kingdom. And we tend to focus on what the real problem is. And the problem of this whole crisis is not the French fault. It's not Border Force fault. It's not the lawyers' fault. It's not the government's fault. It is one reason is we give out UK passports to refugees and give them citizenship. That is the root of the problem, and they get this passport via the 1951 United Nations Refugee Convention. I mean, we're pretty clear on what we stand for. We want to completely end permanent settlement immigration and stop giving citizenship and housing to refugees. We're full up. And we're a new party. There is some other parties out there, but unfortunately, Reform UK, Heritage, UKIP, but all, if you look through their manifestos, they all Ironically, they have actually put in their manifestos now they want to leave the United Nations Refugee Convention. But then, if you read down, they say we will accept true refugees and give them citizenship and passport.
Yeah, you're no better off. No. So you would see that as the key, one of the key, a key issue. We've got to get out of that 1951 agreement.
Yes. Not only that, but we need to make it clear to the world we are not going to give citizenship to refugees anymore. And as soon as the message gets out, they will stop coming. If we don't do that, we're going to be talking about this in 10 years' time, and they'll only find another way to get in the country. It used to be through the back of the lorries, 2016. I've been campaigning to get out of the United Nations Refugee Convention since 2015. And I remember the first couple of small boats what came over in around 2016.
Yeah.
But also you need to have a long-term plan, and we have got a long-term plan. If you would allow me to just quickly say it.
Go ahead,
right.
Pat. Yep.
So basically, the first thing we got to do is send a message out to the world. We're not going to be giving passports to refugees anymore, and we're going to leave the United Nations Refugee Convention. Once we've left that, then we can treat them as criminals turning up on the boats, on the beaches. And we need a deterrent. And just deportation alone, if you can deport them, because as we all know, they destroy their identities, we need a deterrent, and we're suggesting a 3-year prison sentence. So once we've left the convention, anyone found in this country illegally would get an automatic 3-year sentence, because there is an estimated 2 million illegal immigrants in the UK at the moment. So basically, we would set a date. Just say we got into government, which is highly unlikely, but we're a pressure group and we want to put pressure on other parties to adopt our policies. So we would set a date for 1 year, and we'd say, right, if you leave by the date in a year's time, and the conditions would be to give their DNA, fingerprints and photograph when they leave an airport or a seaport. If they haven't committed a serious crime, they'd be free to go and banned for life. And if they get caught again coming in, they're going to get a 3-year, and they're going to have to do the 3 years. So most of the people would actually probably leave voluntarily once they understood that they will be going to prison if they get caught. But we need to build thousands of detention centres, because there's 2 million of them. And after we've managed to get rid of all the illegal immigrants, we could then turn these detention centres into social housing for the estimated 1 million people on social housing waiting lists we have in this country already. So it's a long-term plan, and because just even if you could deport somebody, which sometimes they do get deported, like the Albanian murderer famously escaped from an Albanian jail and then got in illegally, got deported twice, came back twice. There was an Afghan who had been deported 3 times, and he was literally attacking women on Regent Street with a hammer, and he'd been deported twice already and got back in. So we need to get a deterrent, and the reason Boris Johnson is famous for saying it, he always said he wants to give amnesty for the 2 million estimated illegal immigrants. The reason they say that is because they're not prepared to put these people in prison until they agree to leave. And so they think, well, they're never going to leave. We can't get them to go because they're not scared of anything. They know that if they don't give their identity, they're just not going to be held in prisons here. So it's a long-term solution. What's needed, but like I said before, the root of the problem is that we give out UK passports to refugees, which never should have happened in the first place. I agree that they should be helped, but never to be given citizenship. It's too late to even help them now because we're trillions in debt. And we've helped enough of them already, which a lot of them should have gone back to their countries by now already anyway. So that's our long-term solution.
And Pat, in terms of the pressure on housing stock here in the UK, caused by all these gazillions of people being here, I mean, that must have a real impact on vulnerable Brits, people in crisis, Brits who should surely be the priority. But from what I can understand, they're not the priority at all. It's more likely that these illegals will be accommodated, if not in a 4 or 5 star hotel, in whatever accommodation they can be found.
Yeah, I mean, where I live, I've quite a lot of refugees as neighbours, and recently a friend of mine was living in I mean, he's half Italian, half Serbian, but he was born here, so he should have rights. He was born here, and he literally, he was 30 years old, and he lived in his mum's front room. It was a one-bedroom flat, and he went down to the council and said, "I need a flat. We haven't got any flats. Can you put me on the list?" No, we haven't.
Yeah.
You can't get on the list. So he was 30 years old, living in the front room of his mum's house. And there's refugees being housed all around us because they get extra points because they allegedly fled a war zone. You get extra points for that. It's all points based. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
This is the reason why we started the National Housing Party United Kingdom, because it is such a disgrace what has happened. And there's veterans sleeping on the streets. There's an estimated 300,000 people who are completely homeless. With that, there's another 700,000 like waiting for housing. They can't get on the ladder. The mortgage rates are through the roof. And another one of our policies is to ban foreign ownership of property. Why do people have the right to own property in this country when they live in another country? I just don't understand it. And that is why the prices are so high as well, because of all these multi-billionaire investors so if you look on our website, nationalhousingparty.uk, you'll see all our policies there, David.
Yeah, well, and actually, as you say, so if people are watching this and they want to find more information out about the organization, Pat, then that's where they should go to. Yes.
And I would like to add, we are a staunch unionist party as well.
Glad to hear it. I mean, I think one of the key words that relates to this conversation we're having tonight is there's a lot of patriots out there, and we are ignored or demonized by the scum media, as I prefer to call them. And it's a disgrace, because the priority of any government, I think, Pat, should be to put the needs of the British people first. That can be, and obviously housing accommodation is about as basic as it comes. By the way, I like your Union flag cushion I can see in the background there. That's a very colourful touch. So
I've actually got family in Northern Ireland, David, in Ballymena.
All right. Yes, I know Ballymena very well. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, that this is all, we're all connected, and this issue is connected because, as we talked about to Stan and Dan, that there's all these roots, and we're going to talk to actually in a minute or two. We're just about to come to Jolene here in Northern Ireland with me. To talk about that. But here we go. The National Housing Party UK. There you go, folks. If you want to go and check out stuff, get more information, understand all the stuff that Pat's been talking about. I've had a look at it. It all seems very, very sensible. It's the sort of stuff.
Shout out to Steve Laws. There's a lot of his articles on there, so he's helped us out a lot there. Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah. I said you can use it whenever you want, mate.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah. So okay. So look, Pat. Thank you very much for being on the stream. Appreciate you being here. And now we're going to travel all the way to where I am almost, which is Northern Ireland. And can I bring onto the stream and welcome my friend Jolene Bunting? Hello, Jolene.
Good evening, David. Good evening, Steve.
Hello, mate. You all right?
All good.
And we have another Christmas. I've never seen so many Christmas trees on a live stream as we have this evening. So, Jolene, you're very welcome, and it's good to see you. And obviously, as we're chatting about, this issue does affect all of us: England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. In fact, actually, even affects the Irish Republic as well. But so, what's your stance on all of the stuff we've been talking about? What do you think?
Well, David, I think, thank God for Steve Laws and Pat McGuinness and everyone else, the Voice of Wales, everyone else who is speaking out, because I think what is happening now is all their hard work is actually starting to pay off. I don't want to be too much of an optimist there, but I think people are now seeing it on the streets. So the years that they have put in by highlighting what has been going on for years, and David, this isn't a new thing. This is something which has been going on for years, and we've been highlighting it for years. But I think now it has become mainstream, and it's become mainstream because it's an invasion. And Suella Braverman has said it is an invasion. And when the Foreign Secretary of a country says there's an invasion going on, I think the UK public need to set up and understand what she said that day when she said that this is an invasion.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
whenever she said it was an invasion, half of those in the House of Commons swooned and fainted almost at the very use of the word invaders. But yet, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, everything, Joanne, that we see, Jolene, it like this, it's the correct word. I mean, they hate the truth being spoken, but it is an invasion of the United Kingdom.
absolutely. And the people who are swooning and fainting at someone's naming it what it is,
Yeah.
these people live in their ivory towers. And I remember in America when Ron DeSantis bust them all into their ivory tower. It was a small island. Can you remember that hitting the news? Where they bust them into where the celebrities
Yep.
and where the rich people stayed. And I think that is a solution that we should definitely resort to. I think we should be busing them in to places where these MPs live and let them see the damage that is being done in our communities. While the housing stock, while the cost of living's hard for the British people, we cannot afford to sustain this ridiculous invasion, and we're paying people to invade. Can you imagine in history if the people who such as Hitler had sent their army in as victims, and the world had welcomed them in, and suddenly they turned on us? That was something that I'm really concerned about, that these fighting age men are going to turn on the Western people, and we are going to find ourselves in a civil war situation, because there are so many of them and so little of us who actually can see what is going on. And I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
And Jolene, can I ask you another question, just as regards Northern Ireland specifically, because we have talked about Wales and we've talked about England, but what's your view of what are the movements happening here in Northern Ireland, as far as you can see, with regard to these illegals?
What seems to be happening, David, I know that there was a gang arrested for trafficking them from Dublin up to Belfast. That's obviously going to happen. When we have no border at all between the EU and the UK, we could see that from the protocol was ever first mentioned. The Northern Ireland Protocol has to go, and we must put a hard border in between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. It's the only way to keep the United Kingdom safe. And when our government wake up and admit that and stop being afraid of offending Sinn Féin and nationalism, then we may actually get somewhere. So that's what's happening. So we have the people coming over. Then the UK government is also bringing them over to house them in the hotels. I spoke to one outside Lockshore, and he had come from London to Dublin, and then from Dublin to Belfast, which I found really strange, that he would go from outside the EU back into the EU and then up to Belfast. There seems to be that channel, but like some places are unrecognisable. David, I don't know if you've been in South Belfast, Sandy Row, Donegal Road area. It's unrecognisable, but there's even the shops have changed. The shops aren't selling local things. The local people there are in dismay of what they are facing on a daily basis, because if it's not drug addicts from local drug addicts, because our society seems to have been flooded with drugs, it's people who have come from third world country and think they're still in a third world country, and they're not civilized.
Well, I absolutely. I've got one more question for you. I can see in the background, I can see James is in the background there. We're going to bring James on shortly, and I can see Liam as well. Guys, I see you both. So just hang on a second, and we will most definitely get to you, so you can have your say as well. We've got as much time as we need, guys. So, but Jolene, just to, just on the points. I mean, I do see this change in Northern Ireland, which is a relatively small place, and that's the point I was trying to make making with the guys, with Dan and Stan as well. Small places can change very, very quickly. We see it in the Irish Republic as well. I mean, my friend Gemma O'Doherty is doing a great job documenting the incredible demographic changes there as well. I mean, there's parts of Dublin and out beyond Dublin which are just not recognizably Irish. And it just carries on below the radar. And apart from people like Steve and yourself and the folks that we've had on, it's not discussed. It's impolite to talk about it, but it needs to be discussed, doesn't it, Jolene?
David, we've been being told for years that we shouldn't talk about it. We shouldn't talk about the problems that we have faced for immigration for years. And the reality is, if we had started talking about it then, we could have got a grip on it before it got to this stage. And yeah, you're right about the Republic of Ireland. And I never thought I would hear myself say it, but I am so pleased that the Irish people are getting angry about it because it is about time. And I think we are still in the British upper lip, stiff upper lip phase still here in the UK. People aren't getting angry. It's the known faces, but I think people are waking up slowly but surely. I think we do have this stiff upper lip mentality still going on, but I hope that the people will wake up, especially when the Irish people are waking up. I recently seen a picture of O'Connell Street, and it was, you wouldn't have thought it was in Ireland at all. It looked like somewhere from the Middle East. And it's happening so much in prominent areas as well, places where history has unfolded. History is once again unfolding where they're being colonized. So I mean, the government can deal with this. As Pat was saying, we need to leave the UN Refugee Convention. We need to leave the European Court of Human Rights, which we actually had a referendum on. We voted to leave, and we're still pandering to the European Court of Human Rights. And when we do that, we might be able to get a grip on the situation. However, it's going to take years of work to try and undo what has been done over the last few years.
No, I completely agree, Jolene. And Jolene, can I also say, just before you go, a big thank you to yourself, because I'm well aware of all the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune thrown your way by those who don't like truth to be spoken. So again, it's a good chance for me tonight to thank what I see as great patriots from all over the UK who are doing the right thing by speaking out. So Jolene, thank you very much for being with us this evening. And as I say, a very happy Christmas to you as well. We're now going to bring, so bye-bye, Jolene. We're now going to bring one of our younger contributors of the evening, James, who is just, I think I see him in the background there. Yeah. James Harvey. James, welcome to the stream. How are you, young man?
I'm doing good, David. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing exceptionally well. And it's great to spend an evening, can I say, James, with such fantastic people. It's really, really inspiring, So you're definitely at the younger age spectrum than I am. So, James, how do you see understatement? I mean, from your perspective, James, I mean, what do you think of all the stuff that we've been talking about and the stuff you see unfolding in front of your young eyes?
Well, the problem is with illegal immigration is absolutely just ruining our country, right? Now this excuse that we're hearing a lot of, that they're refugees and that they're coming from bad countries and we need to do whatever we can to support them, is absolutely ludicrous when you take a look at the figures, and most of them are coming from countries like Albania, like all the other ones that aren't currently at war. And so they're coming over, we're giving them free shoes, free iPhones, free housing, free food. We're spending £7 million a day now to house people who aren't fleeing conflict and we have no international obligations towards. So it's a massive issue, and it's an issue that isn't talked about enough. But when people talk about it, they need to realize as well that the majority is on our side. It's the reason that people vote in the Tories, and the reason that the Tories have remained in power and are still leading ahead of Labour in the polls. It's the reason that over 70% turned out to vote Brexit, was because they're sick of other countries getting involved and telling us how we should feel about what's happening in our own country. So it's just disgusting, isn't it?
James, do you feel betrayed by our political parties?
Oh, definitely. I think, the Tories, I've said this to so many people and they always just laugh and give me that, sly snicker. The Tories have become so much alike to the Labour Party. We've pretty much got a Labour government in now. Everything that the Tories have been doing, higher taxes, more immigration, whatever, they're all Labour policies. So the Tories aren't, they're not doing what they were voted to do. If you remember Sajid Javid, with his response saying, "So what?" Well, he was voted.
Yeah.
Exactly. His constituents, he's betraying his constituents by not doing anything about the fact that we're becoming a minority in our own country and that Christianity is now on a decline. And I don't know if you saw, there was an article came out recently. They want to, what was it? They're now talking about getting rid of Christmas because the Islamic migrants feel left out. But if they feel left out, then they would be much happier in their own country where they came from, celebrating their own customs and traditions. Why do we have to cater to them and how they feel?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a fair point. That can't be made strongly enough. Actually, if you come to another country, guys, then you must integrate, accept the culture and the traditions and the laws of that country. And that sure as heck is not happening in the UK. But but it does worry me. And you see, as a young person, James, like, how do you see your future in this country?
Well, this is the most worrying part because, when I did, I was doing outreach recently regarding cashless, and there was this old elderly man who told me, well, it's not me you've got to worry about, it's the younger people. And that's something I totally agree with, right? Because, eventually when the younger people grow up, they're the ones, they're the ones who are going to decide the future. They're the ones who are going to be fighting for these woke issues like climate change and all of that.
Yeah.
So the big issue is that, it's not about waking up the older generations anymore. It's about waking up the younger generations. This is why Students Against Tyranny, who I run I run it as a campaign group. We're trying to wake up students and kind of promote other alternative ideologies to them. Like we want immigration and stuff like that to be discussed more. But the thing is as well, right, that I'll speak to a lot of students all the time, and as soon as they find out I'm right wing, they'll go, "Thank God," right? There's a lot of kind of awake students who are right wing but are just scared to say anything because if you were to talk about immigration, you'd get branded as a racist. That's something that sticks with you forever.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the most effective weapon, and I'm sure, Steve, you would agree. By raising the issue in any regard, the first line of attack is you're racist. You're racist.
Oh yeah. I've been called every name under the sun. It don't bother me though, to be honest with you. Once you've been called it a few times, you're over it. It just water off a duck's back, sort of. But you have some people, it does shock some people and it pushes them back and they back off when they get called it. But you've got to learn, it's just a word. It's no different than calling someone, like, I'm not going to swear because it run a string, but it's no different than calling someone one of them. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's an irrelevant term that they use as like a power grip over you. It's just classic communist takes, isn't it? Call them fascists, call them Nazis until people believe it. And they do. That's what they do.
Yeah. Well, that's right. But actually, James, in your generation, I think the wokery, the refusal to accept the realities that we've been talking about, do you think most people of your generation are kind of okay with all of this massive demographic change? Or do you think that, like you, they would like to see the thing stopped and sorted out in the interests of the British people? What do you think for your generation?
So it kind of depends, especially on the area as well. If you go to an area that's, has a high socialist demographic, then it's going to be different. It also depends on the school as well. Something interesting that I found out is the highest ranked schools, like the Imperial College London, like Cambridge University, they are all the most restrictive around free speech. Right, so the highest ranked universities are most restrictive around free speech. But then you go to like Manchester University, which is quite well known for their kind of policies on free speech and all of that. So it kind of depends on that as well, because any university that you go to that has a high free speech ranking, issues like this are going to be talked about more, whether that be in debating societies or actually in lessons. But something they're teaching a lot of now, which is quite a neo-Marxist ideology, is critical race theory and stuff like that. Telling telling young white students that they are privileged because of their skin color, and then telling young young black students or whatever that they are discriminated against, and that white people have done this to them for thousands of years and are still continuing to do it, and that everyone's a racist. It's disgusting. And as I was talking about just a second ago, this term racist, what it's then done, I don't know if you saw like on I'm a Celebrity a couple of years ago, there was this guy called Jack Maynard on, and he was kicked off quite quickly because of something he said 10 years prior, which then came across as racist. So this is the thing, but the students, if they don't realize, if they're pushing for this now, right, something they say now that might not be offensive could later down the line become offensive. Like who 10 years ago would have thought it would be offensive to say that women can't have penises? Do you get what I mean? It's so everything's changing so constantly that today's what isn't offensive today will become offensive in the future, and students slowly are becoming are working towards seeing it. But the problem is, as I said, they don't want to be tarnished with that you're a racist label.
Yeah, no. Well, James, what I would say is I think it's really great that there are young people like you who've got the steel in your spine and the confidence to be able to speak up and say the things that you're saying. So again, just like everyone else, a big thank you to you for being here with us this evening. I see we have Liam and Reverend Simon Sideways in the background. I see you guys. Don't worry, we're coming to you right now. So big thank you, James, and thanks for being with us. And I think we're going to bring Liam, because I mean, let's bring Liam into the stream. Hi, Liam. How are you?
Hello. Nice to see you, David. Hi, Steve. How you doing? Thanks for inviting me on.
No, you're very welcome. And we saw you in the video, and I thought you made a very important contribution, because you repeated the same word 3 times, which to me seems to be the only way you resolve this is what you basically said. Just repeat. Tell us what you think we need to do.
Deport.
Yeah.
The only way.
But it's a lot of.
I can't see anything.
Sorry, guys. I'm having a right nightmare with my camera.
But Liam, like, we're talking about the fact there's approximately 2 million, maybe, of these people in this country. That's a lot of deportation, isn't it? Do you think it could be done? How could it be done? How are we going to get the deportation, Liam?
Well, my mum used to be a social worker for Kent County Council, working with minors. Okay. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer in March. 3 years ago, she said to me, something has to be done, because she said to the powers that be at Kent County Council, come on, guys. They are not 16. They are not 17. They are adults. You know, they've got chest hair up to their navels.
Yeah.
You can do something about it. And I went, well, what can I do? She went, you used to be a journalist. You can do something with YouTube. And this was the first time that I met Steve, right? Because we're both Folkestone lads. And so I met up with Steve, and it was just like, okay, here we go. These are all the ramps. Here we go. Look at all these thingies or everything like that. What my mum said is that they couldn't do anything because it was against their human rights in order to do dental, dental checks, etc. And so what happens is they bend over backwards, the social services, even so much as so that Kent County Council say, oh, we're full up now. Now, unaccompanied minors, they're not. And how many, I think, a couple of days ago, that they abscond. I put in a freedom of information request, and Steve has alluded to this as well, that when we put in freedom of information requests and ask about how much was spent on this, where they're going, it's never in the public interest, is it, Steve? It's never in the public interest.
It's a simple cop-out, though, isn't it? It's just so they don't have to give you the information. They hold the information. They're scared for it to be released.
Exactly. And then it says, we do have the information, but it will cost man hours of £600 in order to get it out. You know, now living in Folkestone, and as Steve said, we've got 2 hotels. One's called the Carlton, the other one's called the Southcliffe. 5 miles away in Hythe, where my mum and my stepdad live, we've got the Stay Court Hotel. We've got upwards of 500 people, including Napier Barracks. Napier Barracks, they set fire to it. I've had emails from concerned parents from Folkestone School for Girls showing me the head teacher's email saying, we have got a lot of uninvited guests, right? I've been up to Napier Barracks and I've spoken to local residents. Some of them don't want to be on camera. Some of them don't know about. There is hookah pipes. There's empty beer cans. You know, they maraud in they shoplift like you wouldn't believe. I swear to God, all right, living in Folkestone is crazy. And isn't it funny how it's always down in the seaside towns that are a bit of down and out? Never in Highbury, never in Islington, never in Kensington or Chelsea, never in any, you know, posh place. Always put on, like the people in Skegness. And one thing I just want to say here, really before, because I'm on a rant here, I tell you something, every single hotelier that has turned down the shilling are heroes.
Because obviously some of these hoteliers, Liam, I mean, they must be loving it because it's guaranteed income. You don't have to worry about anything. If there's repairs, the government will take care of the repairs. So you can understand the seduction of it. But it's a total betrayal, isn't it? It's a total betrayal of those communities around those hotels.
Yeah, it is, but it won't be forgotten. It won't be forgotten. Those who have taken the shilling, they are right. You might get the thing right. Steve, would you be able to just confirm this? What do Serco promise? Because I know I've got another couple of messages from people that are being turfed out of their houses by their landlords because what does Serco offer, Steve?
Well, it's not just Serco, it's Clear Springs, Ready Homes and Mears as well. And what they offer is basically illegal immigrants, when they're housed in either the private sector or social housing, don't have to pay any rent, regardless of whether they've passed their asylum application or not. They don't have to pay any utility bills. They don't have to pay council tax, none of that. So all of those bills that everyone's struggling to pay at the moment, they don't have to pay, as well as they get given a cash allowance to live off. So all of the money, like when you hear the open border fanatics crying, they go, oh, they only get £45 a week. That's because they've got their rent paid, their utilities bills paid, their council tax paid, their food bills paid, their dentist bills paid, their everything's paid for. And it's all obviously by the taxpayer. But ultimately, it's just absolutely disgraceful that it's actually happening, because whilst we're struggling to pay our bills, for instance, I have a key meter in my house and I have to put £15 on the electric every 2 days at the moment, which is actually starting to add up, obviously. But none of these bills that people have to fork and struggle to get by on, they don't have to pay any of it, and it's just disgraceful.
It absolutely is. So listen, Liam, thank you very much for being on the stream. We're trying to make sure we get everyone else, but a pleasure to meet you. And again, thanks for all that you're doing, because we all appreciate the work that all of you guys are doing. So with that in mind, can we bring our final guest onto the stream? He's been sitting there patiently in the background. Hello, Reverend Simon Sideways. It's been a few years since I think we spoke last, but great.
Centre of London, as I remember, outside of court, I think it was.
Outside of court, that's right. Yeah, I do remember it well.
Good times.
good times. Yeah,
mind you, it was sunny then, so it's half about. But
yeah. Well done you for not having a Christmas tree in the background. By the way, you're the first, and Steve as well. Actually,
no, I've got my tree. That's my tree.
I said, okay, a very modest tree. But Simon, on the issue in hand, I mean, again, you're in the video there. I think you made a very telling observation at the end. But I mean, how do you see this issue playing out, and what would you like to see?
I'd like to see all of them gone. If you want it to be blunt, I don't like them. I don't have to like a conquering army, and that's how I see them. At the end of the day, you can dress it up as, oh, these people are in need. No, they're not. If they come directly from wherever it is they hail, which they haven't, but if they did, then it might be slightly legal. But the fact they've traipsed across Europe, ruining it as they go, and then decided there's more money to be made over here or whatever, or maybe they're a criminal gang coming from somewhere that's actually not war-torn at all, I don't have to like them. And how do I say this? If I got into power tomorrow, they'd be on the next boat somewhere else. That's how I feel about them. But There's a lot of people to the left that are terrified to say anything, and I don't think some of them like them. And there's a lot of people on the right who also feel like if I say something, everybody's going to go and dogpile me, and you know, I might lose my job and all the rest of it that goes with it. But at what point do you think, yes, I've got a lot to lose, but if I don't do something now, we've got a lot more to lose further on down the line? Because they're not just slightly a few here and a few there. They're in every blooming hotel up and down the country. I live in a tiny village, right? And just up the way is a hotel ram-packed full of them, right? They can't get on the bus because the bus is now banned because of the damage. And now we've got grifters. We've got people who are people who are buying run-down hotels to chuck them in, hoping they smash the place up because then it gets refitted on our money. And then we've got the impact of what they're going to do socially. Yeah. They're going to trash the place. I mean, what is it they say? You can take the man out of Bristol, but not the Bristol out of the man, right? And you can say that about anybody. If you've taken people who live life very differently from a country that doesn't have a lot of time for us and chuck them in our country, what do you expect is going to happen? They're not going to be like, do you know what? I like this. I'm going to go to church on Sunday. I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to fit in, and I'm going to keep up with the Joneses. No. So.
Because the only way anything could work is complete integration, absolute integration, and that's impossible. So you can't have that. So plus, there's also the sheer mathematics of this. It's the sheer numbers, isn't it, Simon? The numbers mean that this situation. Look, okay, let me put you like this. If this carries on, Steve said that, like, you know, over the last couple of years, we've seen the numbers arriving on the southern beaches from, you know, relatively small numbers to 45, 50,000 that we know of this year. And it might be more than that. And that'll probably increase again next year. I mean, Simon, if it doesn't stop, where does it end?
War. Sorry, culture war. Because they come from an ideology that wishes to push its own ideology on everybody else by whatever means. You can see them when they're coming up the gangplank. Steve will tell you, they're not exactly friendly. All right.
No, I've been abused by so many of them. It's unreal.
They extend the finger of hope to you. Not. They're just the most, you know. And here's the other thing: if you are an impoverished person that's come from, I don't know, the war-torn whatever, I don't like you to be dressed in better and more expensive clothes than me with the latest blooming iPhone, right? With the latest haircut and looking like you're a fighting fit army bloke. I generally can't see, right? Where are the women? And here's the other thing. Yeah. These poor little sausages that come in here looking for a new world, they left their women and children back there, didn't they? Didn't care about them. What honor is that? And also, the countries that are supposed to be war-torn at the moment, they're nowhere near what they were back in the day. So Tata, go back there, rebuild it.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is we're all in agreement with each other. But Simon, but the problem is that the political class we have at Westminster and most of those in the media really don't want to know about this at all. They definitely don't want to know about this. As far as they're concerned, it's humanitarianism, uber alles. You know, we got to make sure that we take care of these people, even if it's ahead of our own. And as you said, that's a recipe for disaster, because eventually people waken up, don't they?
Well, you've got the two main parties, right, which are totally bought and paid for. All right, you've got I don't know how many lobbyists per person. And here's the thing: if you vote in the right direction, it'll be financially worth your while. Now, you've only just got to see what's happening over in the European Union at the moment. They've 600,000 they've found in socks and drawers and stuff like this from people that take money, right?
Yeah.
When so say for instance, when what's his name got in, the one that took us to war, when he came in, he had
Blair.
X amount of million. Blair, when he left, he had 150 million. Now that money doesn't come from the job, so people are paying him significant amounts of money to make decisions that go against the public interest, and that's the same for the rest of them. I wouldn't say there were too many genuinely honest people in Westminster at the moment, so we're not going to get it out of a political system, and they have no recourse with them because they're untouchable. Anytime we put a protest on, they're not there, right? So they don't care. They laugh at us. Even if we did put a protest on, they're not in any way threatened, right? Which they shouldn't be. I'm not endorsing that at all, right? But there is no comeback. They don't care. They laugh at us. They think it's funny, and they'll think, well, we'll just serve whoever. We'll come into the job with X amount of money. We'll leave with a stupid amount more and a nice little job somewhere to pat us on the back. Thanks very much. So we're not going to get anything out of these people. So I'm kind of at a loss now what to do, because you can't take the law into your hands. That's illegal. You can't expect them to do anything. That's hopeless. So we're in this area at the moment that if something isn't done, which it won't be, we're knackered. So,
well, okay, Simon, you pose probably the crunch question of the evening. Okay, Steve, what's the answer?
I would love to have the answer. Honestly, people put it to me, and there's so many different ways you can go about it. But like Rev said, the politicians are not going to do it, and the people are not going to rise up because, for obvious reasons. So it's kind of, we're like he says, we're stuck in limbo, and we're all having the same discussions. We all want the same things, but it's not happening, and that's the problem.
Civil disobedience now.
That's all we've kind of got left, because until the politicians actually listen to us, and the ones that are in Westminster at the moment, not one of them's worth their wage whatsoever. I can't see one of those politicians in the Houses of Parliament that have done anything that benefits the population whatsoever.
So here's a thought somebody said to me earlier on. If you go out and strike against, say, for instance, about fuel, and you go to a fuel depot, you get done for an act of terrorism. And slowly but surely, they're bringing about more and more laws that stop you from striking. But if there was a strike where people just didn't go in to work, they stayed home, then you wouldn't be able to see them. So you wouldn't be able to single them out. And if, say, for instance, we decided we were going to put on some form of strike with this new idea, right? I think more people would just have a day off. They haven't got to put their face to anything, but they're powerful by not showing up. So the transport industry could put in a show. If say, for instance, many vehicles didn't go out on the road, that's millions and millions of pounds worth of money lost by that lot in Westminster, right? And all of the other things, say, for instance, big sectors and whatever, do this kind of thing, but we have to do it at the same time and bring the country to its knees. Now, we're going to suffer ourselves. That's a given. Anything we do will bring more misery on ourselves, but you have to bring some misery on yourself now to stop immense amounts of misery down the future, because otherwise our kids will be subjugated to the whims of these people.
Well, I saw, I don't know if either of you guys saw it. I saw a scene that was filmed, I think it was London, some part of London, on a bus driver. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was a London bus driver, and he was being attacked by
allegedly a female.
Alleged female, but we mustn't be judgmental, because remember, there's no such thing. And I thought to myself, like, we have become the third world in some regards, because that sort of thuggery, barbarism in the streets, even at that level, is something that was, within a generation ago, inconceivable, absolutely inconceivable. And now, from what I gather, it's pretty much commonplace.
Years ago, we used to have the public would discipline each other. In villages, towns, and everywhere else, you had elements that if they misbehaved, they were shamed. And shaming was a very effective way of making sure people didn't step out of line. It's been used all over the world in different things. But when we were supposed to adhere to the Christian society, right, go to church on Sundays, all right, upstanding, men had to be men. And I'll say that again, men had to be men. They had to be gentlemen. They had to do the right thing, even if it was hard, right? And they had to hold themselves to a higher regard. And the ladies held themselves to a decent and honorable and a decent standard. And when women staying at home was a good thing, when we had that society, that this would have never have happened. We just wouldn't have even entertained it. And a young girl going to beat up a bus, her father would have lost it with her. The society would have. It just simply wouldn't have happened. But over the course of 30 years, 40 years, we've ruined society by giving people more and more freedoms and telling them they're being strong and they're being empowered and they're being brave. And it just, all of the film stars and everything like that, they've led away and they've gone down what I can only be described as an evil route, trying to turn our kids' heads to jelly. I mean, how many genders now? Whatever. And when they're trying to say that for a woman to sleep with X amount of people is empowering, Is it? She'll regret that at a later date. I'm fairly sure of it, right? And when they start sending us off all down these other roads, what we do is we ruin the next generation. And that's what's happening.
Well, I think, you know, Steve, I'm going to get Simon. Thanks for all of that. I appreciate that. And it's great to see you. I'm going to give the final word to Steve here, Steve, because, you know, we came in discussing this. We've had some great speakers coming on. And I appreciate them all. As I say, it's a fantastic video. We're going to actually play out on it again, just to make sure that everybody on whatever stream you're watching this, you get to see the content that Steve and his colleagues are putting out. But yes, and I mean, Steve, Dear Suella is the name of the video, but I suggest that, you know, you could have a Dear Pretty, couldn't you? And that was pretty, she's pretty useless. And I think that Suella is just as absolutely useless and has no one, and it's almost like, and again, guys, I don't know what you think, but it's like they talk big till they get the job. The minute, Steve, they get the job, they crumble. And all they do is empty sound bites, no action, nothing changes. It gets worse. Steve.
Well, this is the thing. All of these politicians that talk the tough act, ultimately they have no power. And I think they know they have no power, and they're misleading the public intentionally just so they can earn more money out of it and get their part of the circus. And then, like Rev said earlier, they go on, they get a nice cushy job, they retire, and they'll be millionaires. That's pretty much what's happening with every politician that goes into Parliament at the moment. Everyone comes out richer. Nobody comes out poorer. And ultimately, I generally believe that the Home Secretary doesn't have any powers whatsoever. I don't believe she has a single power. She can't do anything. I don't think the Prime Minister even has any power. Not in this country, not anymore. We're under foreign dictatorship, and we don't know who the dictators are. That's pretty much what's happening.
Yeah,
it's a terrible thought, but it's the reality of the situation, and people have to accept it. Once you accept it, you can move forward and try and find a solution.
I also would say that I think that, you know, looking to establishment in every regard is a complete waste of time. That way lies disappointment and betrayal, and that's what we've been talking about tonight. You know, this country's been sold out by a political class which has enriched itself. It's been sold out by a media class which does the same job. And that's why I think, you know, in summary, guys, it's really, really important the work that real patriots like yourselves are doing. And so I just want to bring this to an end by once again, Steve, thanking you, Simon, thanking you, Liam, James, Jolene, everyone for being on the stream with me this evening. And as I say, what we'll do, guys, is just to finish things off, we're going to play out on the video again. And thank you to everyone who's watched this, who will watch it, who will listen to it. Appreciate it. You've had an evening of some fantastic speakers, passion, a real sort of belief in making this a better country.
Oh yeah, one more point, David. Sorry. If anyone wants to make their video and make their message for Dear Suella, I encourage you to do it. Upload it on whether it's YouTube, Odyssey, or whatever, and put your opinions out there. Because obviously the Home Office, they're not going to listen to the message, but it's the more people that speak out on this issue, it encourages more people to speak out on it, and it starts a domino effect. And I think, so if you do make a video, send me the link. I'll put it onto the website. I'll add it with the rest, and just encourage more people to speak out. Sorry to interrupt you on that, David.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. And just to repeat that so that everyone gets it, if you want to contribute, as all these other guys have done, then just go to I think Steve's website, which we just brought up there. We flashed it up. We'll flash it once more, hopefully, before we go. Telling the truth, something politicians don't do. Go there and you can contact Steve. You want to make a video, then this is the way to do it. I think, guys, there's the contact details. Put them all in there. Send it to Steve. There are, if we get this off the screen now, there's millions of us. There are not so many of them. And what we're trying to do, I suppose, is send that message out. Look, guys, thank you all for being here. And that's it from me for this evening. We're going to play the video now before we go. And I will be back on Wednesday evening. Make sure you tune in then. Normal, same times, same space, and more putting the world to right. In the meantime, thanks, everybody, and good night. Video.
First MP I've ever heard talking about the situation in the English Channel being an invasion, and that is what it is. You have to stop the invasion.
The situation in the English Channel is an utter humiliation. You and your entire party have done nothing.
Costing the country billions in pounds, which could be going to more needy people like homeless veterans.
Economic migrants are abusing the system. We want to see you take action.
Why don't you actually do something?
I don't want my country changing so it becomes unrecognisable.
They're fighting age men. No women and children, no refugees or any of that bullshit. We can see what's happening. The Great Replacement is in full swing.
We need to protect our borders. The British public are sick to the stomach of seeing invaders flooded into the country, be put into hotels at their expense, and then be put into their homes before the rest of the country.
We need to exit the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. That is the only solution.
Deport, deport, deport.
Remember the old saying, acta non verba. Action, not words.
Yours sincerely, the British taxpayer and the British voter.